Right. Okay, thank you very much for inviting me. Apologies, my German is very poor, so I'll be speaking in English. So as Alexandra said, talk about whole life BIM for PPP projects. A little bit about me, a little bit about BAM, and then we'll head into two projects. One is a PPP project in Ireland, a batch of schools that I'll talk about the design and construction phase and bid stage to get to the final use of the building. And then we'll talk about Wharfedale Hospital in the UK, in Leeds, which is mainly talk about the FM side and the advantages, what we've gained from that. So, myself, I'm an architect. I've been an architect now for nearly 28 years. I know it's surprising, but and I've worked for many sort of worldwide sort of major practices, leading projects. The British Embassy in Berlin here for one of them. The Braun headquarters in Melsingen, and lastly, really, I suppose, the Staatsgalerie Music School in Stuttgart, to name a few, but other major projects. So I've been very lucky in my career so far, and I've now been with BAM 5 years. BAM itself, for those who don't know BAM is a major worldwide company working in 47 countries around the world. Approximately 27,000, Menno here will probably correct me, 20,000 people, and we pride ourselves doing landmark projects again. And really, I suppose, picking up on the question earlier, not the colour, but what we do, it's basically we do property development ourselves, we do design, we do construction, we do FM, and we use our own buildings. So there's a natural internal need to eke out efficiencies through what we do and how we do it. BIM is major, 80% about process and people, about collaboration. It's a natural follow-on. We'd probably be doing it anyway, as it's mandated in the UK. Our Dutch friends, the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium, the international projects are all adopting this now and following suit, and we're becoming one BAM using one system. So, at the moment, as we say, we have 44 PPP projects under our management. And at financial close, we have a value of 7 billion UK pounds capital value. And they do generally court buildings, schools, hospitals, I think roads and bridges as well, so and all around in various countries on that. So really picking up on the two projects I talked about earlier is the Irish Schools Bundle and the Wharfedale Hospital. So the Irish Schools Bundle, it's four schools. They've just been completed. And we already won a BIM award, Innovation Award, for what we've undertaken on that BIM to FM on that project to date. As I say, 4 schools, they're spread out, they're not in one location, they're spread out through Ireland at different scales and different sizes. CapEx value 65 million euros. And approximately just over 3,000 pupils in the building. And the key there is we're looking after those buildings from our FM team for 25 years, and that gives us a good scope to actually explore what we can do, how we can do that, and the benefit. And I think the key issue here is what's noted earlier, is that the OPEX, the operational cost, can be at least 10 times that of the capital cost of the building in the first place. So any advantages with digital is going to be with the operation phase, and ultimately we're building buildings for people to use. That's where we've got to see those priorities. The Irish batch was the first public tender competition to mandate BIM Level 2. And in a sense, in the bid stage, it became very important. Our Irish colleagues learned from what we pushed forward in the UK, and in a sense we get sample projects, they've been put through to the planners. We looked at those, we modelled those sample projects, and actually found out there were major issues with those coordination already, major issues that conflicted with the planning requirements. From that, we used our technical advisory team and produced virtual tours. Any 3D model, whether it's SketchUp, Revit, or whatever, you can actually do a virtual tour with a headset and walk through, and that enabled the planners and the school users to actually understand what we're proposing, and that's key that anybody can use, and that's an area that we've developed quite a lot in the last year, and it will be in all our careers here. We'll be looking to use that in the next year. And the idea also with the Revit model, within 15 to 20 minutes, we can actually produce photorealistic views of images of those spaces, where before it took 3 weeks and probably took 3,000 euros to do. We can do them immediately now. That enables smarter decisions from various stakeholders. We also, if you build the model right, you classify the system, you can do quantity takeoff, which means you can actually cost the project and de-risk it very quickly. We've, again, working with a construction team, working with our FM team, look at the classification of that, we've enabled us to do that. So we can only not only look at the construction cost at bid stage, we can look at how much it will have a cost to operate as well, and that's quite very important. With that, program systems, with looking at site logistics, we can actually model that and de-risk and clash detect our on-site processes, so you don't get a scaffold put up where a vehicle needs to go through or supplies need to go later. It's just looking for how you can use this technology. Ultimately, it reduced the risk contingency pot that we'd normally put in there by 2%, which could be quite a large percentage if you imagine it's 65 million euros for that batch. During the design stage, we worked and collaborated with the supply chain, trained them up, and they were able to provide us 3D models. And we did full 3D design coordination at tender stage for that. In the construction stage, we worked with Autodesk and used the 360 field process on iPads, which means that all information is to hand, the model, the specification, any health and safety assessments are on site to hand, so it reduces risk. And I suppose that the important point there is health and safety. Our industry in construction is got a poor record still on health and safety. We're now adopting, looking at, perhaps slightly late in the UK than perhaps yourselves, is looking for the off-site manufacturing process to actually de-risk that. Say the manufacturing industry has got a lot less safety, poor performance, and we need to improve that. That's important. Quality, less defects at the end, which is important. If someone's occupying a building, the last thing you want to do is have rooms out of order and whatever because something's gone wrong. We can check that. We can make sure things are checked off with the mobile system, with the checking system on that. And as mentioned before, I think Alexander and Tor mentioned, is we laser scanning work as it goes along, so you can verify and validate as-built information as you go along. You can pass those tolerances on to the next supply chain member, but also you have, a first time ever in my career, 28 years, you have an as-built model that actually has been built exactly to the drawings, not last recorded. That becomes very valuable. And web-based models, and obviously that can be accessed in the cloud anywhere, and obviously over-improve project management. Key to this, which I'll come on to talk about more, the 4 schools weren't using a full CAFM system. We worked with Autodesk some 2.5 years ago to develop a building ops simple smartphone app that allows the user to highlight if a room's too hot, too cold, or something's broken, or it can issue an order. So these things become more immediate. The user has control of their environment and get things back in order quickly. And I'll come back to talk about that later. A simple thing here is that with most FM contracts, and I didn't know that until I joined BAM, the FM really, at the end of practical completion on a project, which is a strange term because the building is either complete or not complete, the builder usually hands the keys over and runs away as quick as possible and whatever. The FM team comes aboard, hasn't got any information, no useful information, and they have to resurvey, which costs the client more money. Per school here is 15,000 euros, not a big deal, but 60,000 euros set up, it's a money that you wouldn't really expect to be paying. So those eliminates this. Just a little thing that they started to use robots, and we've got sensors on those now, and to actually locate where they go, because the robots at the moment tend to clean the same area and forget most areas. So we're looking at that and cutting grass as well, doing the same thing. So a little bit of fun the guys are doing. Just lastly on this batch really is a few metrics. The key thing about FM is they do collect the metrics, unlike construction and design is not so good. I suppose the key ones there is 92% reduction in time for searching information. It's all to hand. You don't have to go search for it. You know it's the latest information. Support calls for the FM team, that actually there's a reduction in the support calls because the building is right in the first place. Corrective action, 78%. I mean, these figures are large, and I think we want to improve on those, but even if you can get half that on most buildings, the end user will actually benefit a great deal and appreciate what we're doing as a whole. And lastly, I suppose on the bundle is, well, the occupier, the deputy principal of one of the schools, was obviously put that statement in there, but the key thing in the end, what we want to do is have happy users, happy clients. If you get happy clients, they talk about you. And we've had a lot of referrals from clients now on what we're doing, how we're doing it. And key thing is understand what their need is from the very start, get the FM team on board from the beginning before designers, contractors are on board to really understand how this building's going to be used. So, with time, I'll speed ahead. Wharfedale Hospital, digitising this process in the operations phase. I say traditionally O&M manuals are on paper or CD or electronic, and they're put in some darkened room never to be seen again, or someone takes a piece of paper away and never returns it, and you haven't got anything. We digitise this process. It's not complicated. But the key thing is, I suppose that we talked about data, and because design, construction collect data, we're the natural people to pass that on. So it's how we form that data in the first place, which that's an important point. It's developed in response to the Level 2 mandate and government soft landings, which is probably more onerous than BIM itself, and I think that's more important. It talks about how the buildings can be maintained. And interesting on the hospitals in the UK, at the same time as the BIM mandate, there was the Carter Review, and Lord Carter looked at the National Health Service and said, actually it's performing really badly. The government looked at the construction industry, said it's performing really badly. There's at least 20% excessive costs in construction. The Carter Review almost repeated the same in how the hospitals are being used, and they wanted to improve that efficiency. And ideally, what they want to look for by 2021, Lord Carter in hospital running, is to improve by 15% by 2021. The onus on in UK or by 2025 is much higher on the cost reduction. So it's an inefficient industry, it's inefficient in the NHS, you can't afford to waste money. So really what they're looking for is, say, if they could achieve a median cost per square metre of a hospital, they could save £1 billion a year, and that's significant. Would you rather have £1 billion sterling or not? And I suppose the case, obviously, you would. So our journey really started on the BIM to FM at Camden School. It was a project that we took over. It wasn't done in BIM. My team, I run the design team, we retrofitted the model into that on architecture, structure and services, services being the key area that from the FM point of view. And we put that onto an iPad using BIM 360 fields. The model's on there in full. We have navigation tools to jump from room to room so you don't have to walk through. You have a drop-down menu. You can actually pick up any element on that. You can touch it. You can take away ceilings. You can investigate that. And actually, you can have QR codes on items, equipment. That means what we talk about is faster first fix, which means anyone can get a ticket from wherever they are. They don't need to be in the building. They can investigate whether there's a pipe leaking. They can locate that pipe, take the spare parts to that. They can identify what height ladder or platform they need, go straight to it and fix it. We get penalties if a room's out of order. This means the room can get put back in order with the first visit, and the occupier can use that room straight away. It's a major advantage. It's just really putting the operation and maintenance manuals digitally onto the system. We've developed this further at Wharfedale. Just a few stats that probably should have been there earlier. It's not a big hospital, 76 bed, endoscopy, minor injuries, outpatients, etc. And BAM PP are operating for 25 years again. We retrofitted the asset model. We put 4,000 assets initially, and they're mainly MEP because they're the things that really they wanted. And that means immediately, because you have a model, you can actually visualize and look for those rooms. We're now looking to put remote cameras in those rooms, so not only you can look at it from a model and look at the virtual model, you can actually see it, and you can put sensors, and you can actually get other information in those rooms itself, as opposed just from the equipment itself. As I say, you can take away ceilings and walls and view behind that remotely, because you have the model. And the key thing is you can start to see where dampers are, and I suppose you think, well, what's the big deal about fire dampers? Well, there was a fire in a Welsh hospital. It was a serious one, and the fire officers had to go around and inspect all hospitals. They went round, normal FM services, paper they couldn't find in most hospitals. They came to Wharfedale. Immediately, the project manager brought up on his iPad, here are all the dampers, located individually one. He'd photographed every one. He'd gone in there, photographed. He'd got all the data, when they were last maintained, last looked at. And it was a groundbreaking moment, and said, why can't we do this on every element in every building? It's a major advantage to know. And to say electrical cupboards and it's the same. So simple things make a difference. Things like regular tap checks they do in hospitals. They have to check the temperature. We put QR codes, we put them on ourselves. The reason is that they're easy to do. We can manufacture them ourselves, we can stick them on ourselves, and they're easy to do rather than more detailed sensors. And the fact is, you can read the temperature on the sensor on the tap. The actual from the QR code, it will tell you when it was last viewed, what needs to be checked on that, when it was last viewed. A lot of the maintenance teams go around, inspect the same tap and miss other taps out, so we don't know what the temperature is. This means you've got a regular check. It creates a digital dashboard of what's been checked, what's not, where the issues are and where you can find those. So simple things about connection. So the reactive maintenance we talked about earlier, and that's really the faster first fix process we talked about, because you're remote, you can actually get to that point and fix that room very quickly. So the metrics on that, every time our maintenance people get called out, they do a simple template report on that, and a simple tick box and timing on that. So reactive jobs, the emergencies, they've had a 45% improvement on the return on those and getting those rooms back in order just by this simple technique. Pre-planned maintenance, well, because they've got the information in hand and they know what's what and they don't have to go back, 54%. That means the maintenance costs are up to 20%, and that's probably cautious. A client of ours recently took that and said, well, we have 5 people maintaining our building, we only need 3. That means those other 2 can maintain other buildings. It's the manpower and the efficiency that comes out of that. And you have the dashboards to know things are up to date. Condition surveys are key. We have QR codes in each room. It tells you what needs to be maintained, what needs to be looked at. It gives you a dashboard of what's been done and what the report is from previously. And what we've done is in the model, we've created the 2D model image of that. And it creates hotspots in there where the problem rooms are. It may be a lamp that keeps going out, but the design teams may be specifying that lamp for every building in the whole hospital. But you don't know. Suddenly now we're getting that data information and it's giving hotspots and tells you where areas and where maybe it's more cleaning is required or something else. And that means ultimately 33% faster surveying. And we can now create a 5-year work plan because we've got this information to hand. We've put sensors, retrofitted sensors into the hospital. And basically that gives real-time data, what's coming along. And I suppose, interesting, not particularly on this one of my colleagues in BAM Infra in the Netherlands talked about a civils project, a tunnelling project. They put sensors on lights. Again, if a light goes out in a tunnel, you can imagine that could create quite a problem. They put sensors on the lights and they found out that there's an electrical surge 2 weeks before a lamp goes. So they then have a 2-week window to change that lamp. So therefore a lamp is never out. So it's that simple information that comes to hand. And it's frozen. No. So basically rooms are shorter downtime, right information at the right time, you know it's the latest information, no wasted time, they don't have to return and go back to rooms. And identify good and bad product performers, so that's good to pass on. And that's part of the government soft landings. The soft landings is to make sure, and how do you learn? It's not a stick to beat people over with, it's actually let's learn together and be collaborative and transparent and not be nervous about that. And energy and carbon savings, where we put sensors in the various rooms. In the operating theatres, they used to leave the lights on and air conditioning working all the time because they were worried about germs and everything else. We did a study on that and said that it's not required, and we're monitoring those systems, and we get 28% energy savings, which the cuts on that, and 6 tonnes of carbon savings. So the overall benefits, really, well, improved efficiency is without doubt there. Cost savings, ultimately, things come down to metrics, and it's about cost in the end, a lot of these things. Reduced impact of FM activities. The worst thing is you don't want people walking about your space and whether it's an airport, whether it just doesn't give a good value, it doesn't look good to customers, to clients, and actually they're inconvenience. You don't want these people about, so the less you can have them about and the buildings operating how it should be, the better. And that's where digital is all about. And the greater stakeholder engagement, they're actually feeding back information to us about different ways of doing things. The technology is there, it's just finding out how do you want to apply that. So really what is next? Well, it's picked up really by Tor, and we're doing now is you can do retrofit, you can put BIM, put the digital process into a single building. Well, we're looking at whole clusters of buildings as such, with spaces, clusters, and creating the dashboards with those. So the dashboard can be to whoever wants it, whether it's the client, whether the estates team, marketing team, to know what's going on. And obviously looking at robots, we looked at the schools bundle in Ireland. They've got robots for cleaning floors, they've got grass cutting. But in the States, we're looking at bringing technology over from there. Obviously we know that operations can be undertaken, security robots coming in, and deliveries, mundane jobs, deliveries can be done by robots as well, and information flow. And we know we're looking at 3D printing. There was, I think, a BAM put out a couple of weeks ago, there was the first 3D printed bridge in the Netherlands. And what we're looking at is now in FM is 3D printing replacement parts. We don't have to wait for new parts, and that's the future. And I think what part of the future is about how we contract with manufacturers. We may not be purchasing lights as Philips already purchase a performance. You buy Lux, you don't buy the lamps. Maybe you're buying, performance on air conditioning. You're buying clean air. You get a clean air contract, not buy performance. So basically, they can quite happily hand over 3D models, etc., to print of various pieces of kit. You don't have to wait. You'd have a printer in the back of your van rather than tools, and you wait and go and get manufacturers. So we're exploring how we do this at the moment. And the sensors, we talked about putting retrofitting sensors, just picking up electrical current, whatever. But things like, again, these are not new technologies. Waste bin collection. We're not going around collecting waste bins and emptying them because we do on a rotor. They're telling us when the weight is heavier and then you need to go and sort those out. Interesting one here, though. I'm a bit sceptical about WC cleaning on the towels. The amount of paper towels people use means how often you need to go and clean the toilets. That does assume people do wash their hands, though. Obviously, sensors around in the rooms, there's all lighting controls, and we're bringing all that technology into that. And it's data. In a sense, most cars, even a basic car, has sensors in. Buildings, you should be like a car, and you should be able to get that reading, and that's all we're aiming to do. Real-time locating systems, again, is important. And obviously patience and with the Carter Review. And the Carter Review looked at, stock holding in the UK is from 11 to 36 days. If you could reduce that down to 15 days because you know where things are, you just save 50 million without doing anything. And that's a simple technology. And therefore putting things on, the manufacturers would put them on. It's no cost really to do that. So taking a product usage, identify the most used and the economies of scale and applying that technology. You'll know how many numbers you've got in stock. You know where it is, and therefore you can actually have an inventory of management and just-in-time arrival, so you know you don't have to record. So you reduce a lot of wastage in hospitals. They have to throw away materials after a certain time because they can't keep it, even if it hasn't been used. So Cambridge University Hospital has got certain metrics on that, savings on beds, etc. But I suppose the last one is, it doesn't sound much, but they now can get devices to departments in 12 minutes. Before, they didn't know where they were. They were repurchasing new items. And it's the same with equipment on site. Our civils projects could be, 20 kilometres down a road, and you don't know where your vehicles are. If you know where your vehicle are, you know where it's been and what it's done, you can cost that. So it's just simple things of applying that technology. And the Internet of Things in the healthcare market by 2020 is deemed at 117 billion US dollars. So there's a lot of work to do on that. And that really, I won't go into the detail on that, but each member of the team in the hospital, whether it's states, whether it's the surgeons, whether it's the staff, whether it's visitors, can gain by this data, and it's collecting the data. Only 0.5 of data collected today is being used, so 99.5% of the data that's available is not being used. That data may not be useful for me or you, but somebody else will find that, so we need to collect that, and that needs to be done freely. And therefore, what we're developing with a client at the moment, not in a hospital, but we're developing an app. If you've got the FM team and all the data, then you can hand over an app to the users of the building to actually understand how that building is used, what information is there. You can pass on whether a sensor in a car park, you can actually book a car park space. You can book a room. The technology will then cluster those rooms so you're not spreading them around. You can adjust your heating, lighting, temperature, etc. And so the whole thing becomes more, the occupants become more productive, they enjoy their environment, they have more control, the whole building becomes more efficient, and everything benefits from that. And that's only just digitizing, doing a simple technologies, but collaboratively pulling ideas together. Just to take a little bit further that our Dutch colleagues are looking at, we're looking at virtual reality in the UK, in my team. The Dutch are looking at the mixed reality and augmented reality, and this is our FM team of what they can do with the HoloLens, Microsoft HoloLens. So basically, all the information on the iPad now, they can have on a headset. It brings up, you walk into a room, there's hotspots, it picks up on various pieces of equipment we show, and it tells you, say, this is a sprinkler test. So again, that's what they see through the visor. Tells you which one to go to, tells you what information to look at, what to do, and it tells you, here's the test, turn that. And that's what they do, and that's available now, and that's quite simple technology by adapting that step further. We're not taking that to construction sites at the moment because we feel trips and falls and health and safety is bad enough without something coming up in front of your headset, but it's interesting that you can have cameras and all sorts of things within that. Cybersecurity as a whole subject itself, but obviously with all this digitized systems, security is of utmost importance of how to prevent that. And so really the enhanced patient experience is what we're trying to aim at. Improve visitor experience, to know and enjoy and actually be able to find things. The healthcare professionals, the people who work in there, they need to be able to actually work more productively, enjoy work and not be frustrated, and know who they're treating and when they're treating them and why. The estates team, it becomes obvious. Concession stores were predicted service charges. They could actually predict how much the things are, how much materials are being used, and the supply chain. Well, they can do the just-in-time logistics. So it's about a collaboration and sharing the data and pulling it really from the very start, from design, construction to the FM, and collaborating, get that FM team on board early and understand those experiences. As I say, we're scaling up. We've developed King's Cross as a whole campus now, and we're developing that. It's got a model of the whole thing, the whole site, and we're looking at universities and hospitals. But the last point really is the technology is here. It's not a prototype. You just need to know what you want to do and how you do it. And the only way to do that is to get people around in a room, collaborate the right people, and link the data and link it back to a coordinated model. Thank you very much.
Many thanks, Mr. Pryke. This is your applause.